Okay, today is November 30th, 2002. I'm at the house of Harold Elmer Bogenrief, or Bogey as everybody knows him. My name is Jason Andrus. I'm the grandson of Harold Bogenrief, and we're going to get his war history on tape today. We're at his home. It's on 971 East Silica Drive in Sandy, Utah. 972 Silica Drive in Sandy, Utah. All right, Grandpa. If you could just start out by telling us what branch of the military you were in and your enlistment dates.
Okay, I was in the United States Navy. I spent about 8.5 years, 3.5 years in active duty, and the balance of the time in reserve. I was an AOM first.
What is an AOM?
AOM is Aviation Ordnance Mate. And I was aboard a heavy cruiser. First when I went in, I guess I should say, I enlisted when I was 17. I enlisted in March 21st, 1942. And we were eager to get into the service to fight for our country. And a lot of us did the same thing. We all lied about our ages, about getting in, because that's what we wanted to do as youngsters, is to get in and do our duty. I spent most of my time in the South Pacific, and was in some major conflicts. Some I don't really relish talking about, because some of the things I went through, I just buried so deep in my mind, I'm not sure that I can recall exactly what I did, other than the fact that some of the things were very distasteful, and it hurt a lot. In fact, I had so much hate within me when I got out of the service. If looks could kill, I could probably kill half the population that I went to. I spent 40 days in Iwo. First 40 days, I went aboard, went ashore the second wave, and spent 40 days. But I don't really relish to talk about what I did, because it really wasn't pleasant. After the war, then I went to Iwo. Or from Iwo, I went on up to Guadalcanal, and we got hit by 3 kamikazes, and I got sent home. I got a free ticket home, and I spent time in the hospital. I watched a lot of servicemen with amputees and badly wounded, just badly shot up. After the war, I came home, went to school, joined the reserves, and that was pretty good duty, because we went down to the Caribbean and had a lot of fun doing things. And we went on a goodwill tour to Argentina, and we went on a goodwill tour to Turkey. However, the situation there was almost standing on the threshold of WWII. We never went ashore because the Russian troops were on the eastern border of Turkey, so we never got ashore. But we had a good time. Then I decided that being married was not for a family man. So I got a discharge from the reserve, and instead of being discharged, I was put on inactive reserve. So when the situation escalated in Cuba, I was ready to be called, and I did get a letter saying, don't bring your family, don't bring your car, don't bring civilian clothes, you got a ship assigned to you. But I worked for a boss who had the political clout to get me out of inactive duty into an inactive status. So that's pretty much was my career.
How long were you a reserve?
See, about 5 years.
Can we back up a little bit and go back to, like, where did you do your training?
I went to, my boot camp was in Farragut, Idaho. And that was short-lived because the war was escalating, and our boot camp was from 12 weeks to 4 weeks. So then we went to active duty, or we got to leave and then went to active duty.
Did you do any specialized training before you went out to combat?
Most of that was done aboard ship.
What did you train as aboard ship?
Well, I went as a AOM, is what I signed up for. But after I got out and into the reserve, they transferred me to radar technician.
That was the beginning of the war? That's where you started. That's pretty much where you started out, was radar technician.
No, not as radar. I did that after the war.
That was after the war. Okay. You mentioned that you told me before about how you were practice shooting, and one of your commanders saw that you were a pretty good shot.
Yes, I was, and I learned young how to shoot. We used to go out and shoot rabbits. We used to go out and shoot squirrels. We used to go out and shoot gophers, and I was real good. And one time the commander asked, said, "You're too fast. Shoot one at a time." And I said, "I'm good at rapid shooting." I said, "You didn't even hit the target." I said, "I beg your pardon. You bring that target in and take a look at it." So they brought the target in and looked at it, and I had 10 shots in a space about that big at about 100 yards.
Nice. You told me he gave you a handgun.
Oh, they gave me a handgun, and I could fire real good.
Because he didn't believe. He said he didn't. You told me he didn't believe you.
No. But he did when he saw the target. I could shoot prone, I could shoot sitting, I could shoot rapid fire. I was good. I was good with a shotgun. I shot a lot of birds with from the hip.
So what'd they do with you after that?
Then they wanted to put me into aerial gunnery. But I wore glasses. And they would look at my class and said, "You sure you use these just for reading?" I said, "Yes, sir, that's what I do." So I thought I could get into gunnery school, but they called a sneaky physical, and they tested my eyes and took my glasses off, and I almost walked through the wall. Because the eyes were pretty bad. But then I went into and I had a when I went overseas, I had a twin 50 that I was in charge of. And I was good with that until the real thing happened. One day they said, hey, enemy ships off in the distance. And I pulled the trigger and I burned out both barrels. And I knew better, but I got a good chewing out for that, because in the heat of battle, I was replacing the barrels.
But you learned your lesson.
Yep, I sure did.
You mentioned, you told me before about how you, there were a lot of the Zeros that came at your ship, and it was your job to knock them down.
Those are kamikazes, Japanese suicide planes. And they came in at us, and we got hit by 3 of them.
But before you'd been successful at knocking down several of them before that. So about how many planes would you?
Oh, I wouldn't even venture to guess, because we had a lot of them, and we fired at all of them.
So was this towards the beginning of the war that you were a gunner?
Mm-hmm.
So how long were you an AOM before they made you a gunner?
Well, I was a gunner, then an AOM.
Okay.
Did first things first.
Okay. So how long were you assigned to each of those positions?
Well, as an AOM, probably from the middle of the war to the end.
Okay. And for the gunner?
That's where you start.
Okay.
So that you, once you prove yourself to be a good gunner, you can go to AOM.
All right. Now, what about you? You told me before how you were a member of the UDT.
That I went in a little later.
Okay.
And because I like the water. I'm a good swimmer. I swim as good, I think, underwater as I do above water. And it was quite exciting.
So, can you tell me about the training for that?
You had to be a good swimmer, both above water and underwater. But it was so new. There wasn't any UDT before the war.
Yeah, it was started during.
All started afterwards.
Right.
And what we did was to swim and put charges against the hull of a ship, a Japanese ship, and then get away as quickly as you can. Sometimes we went ashore on a pre-invasion exercise, and everything was to destroy whatever you can. Destroy buildings, destroy gun emplacements, etc. Then get off.
Where was that? When you had to go ashore?
Where?
Yeah, where did they send you
Some
ashore?
of the various islands that we softened up before the invasion.
So when you went, you mentioned that you went ashore at Iwo. Was that what that was for? Was the UDT?
Mm-hmm.
How long were you on shore at Iwo?
40 days.
40 days. There's the famous.
Then we pick up enemy equipment and brought them to the ship and tested them, see how they work. Like the knee mortar, we brought them ashore, picked those up.
Is that one of
they work.
The jumping mines, or
no?
What is that?
A knee mortar fit on the knee.
Uh-huh.
And you drop the shell in, but we didn't know how to use them, and we broke a lot of knees.
Huh.
Because the recoil come down and hit the knee.
Uh-huh.
So we had to learn how to use the weapons.
Huh. Now there's the famous image of Iwo Jima where the soldiers are raising the flag.
Mm-hmm. 6 men raised the American flag.
Were you there for that?
Yes.
You were?
I didn't see it, but I was there.
What did what kind of emotions did you feel when?
Well, I think basically I think if I had been in the position to do the same thing, I would have done the same thing, because I think a lot of the American flag, and I think that shows the intestinal fortitude of the Marines that went up there and raised that flag. And I think the unfortunate part is that most of them died shortly after the war, either by drinking or through other accidents.
Did you know them?
No.
So, now what were some of your feelings like going through the war? Was it patriotism? Was it fear? What was it like?
Well, there's always fear. How many times am I going to do this? How many times can I do this without getting injured? Because there's a lot of shells going around.
How many times did you see combat? How many times was your ship fired upon, and did you?
Oh, the ship was fired upon constantly. Anytime you get into a battle zone, you're going to get fired upon, either by aircraft or by other ships, or even you could get hit with a submarine. Submarine could shoot a torpedo at you.
You mentioned that you'd actually been on a submarine. Trained for that for a little bit.
Just for a few days.
For a few days. Why didn't you do that?
Well, I guess the biggest fear was if we get hit by depth charges and we're sunk, how do you get out? How do you survive? And I guess fear is the biggest enemy.
So how many different positions did you have I mean, you got to try out all kinds of things, you know. You mentioned it that while you were UDT, you got to try out scuba gear.
No, we didn't have scuba.
You didn't have scuba gear. So how did that work? How did you tell me a story about how when you were training for it, you know, you had oil slicked water that was burning.
Well, you go through that even in boot camp.
Do you?
To see how you can survive in the water. And I was a good enough swimmer, so I could jump. I could drop 60 feet into the water and swim underwater. And what you're supposed to do is come up and break the surface, take a good big deep breath, and then go back down and swim up to the end. Well, rather than doing that, I just swam to the end. And I got caught for doing that, and then I had to do it over again.
You mentioned that one time you didn't clear the top of the water.
Yeah, I was a little upset, and I burnt my hair.
So that was just one part you forgot to do. You
Yep.
clear it, and it singed your hair right off.
Zap, it was gone.
So that was in boot camp. Okay. All right. I just want to make sure we can get the sequence of things in order. So it went. You went from being a gunner on a ship to being was the UDT next, or was it AOM?
No, I did ADT first, and then I advanced to UDT.
What's ADT?
UDT, underwater demolition.
Okay, so AOM was before the UDT. Okay. All right, and so how long were you a member of UDT?
Probably about a year and a half, maybe a little more.
That was at the end of the war?
I don't have the document to show you that I was there, but...
Was that what you were doing when your ship was when your ship was sunk?
Well, it wasn't sunk, it was hit hard.
Uh-huh.
And then casualties are very heavy when one of those planes hit a ship. They can take out the conning tower. And
now, was it just the one ship that was hit really bad? Because
several of them.
You mentioned that one of them went down.
Some of them went down.
Which one were you on that went down? Or was it more than one?
No, I was only on the one that got hit.
Okay.
But we got hit a lot by machine gun fire from planes. And
What kind of ship was it that went down? Do you remember?
the heavy cruiser.
Heavy cruiser. And you said that it's numbered, not named?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. How many men were on that ship?
Well, in wartime, all ships are double complement. If there was 300, then there would be about 600.
So on this one, about 600, would you say? How many survived?
Oh, I don't even remember.
Was
I
it?
don't want to remember.
Yeah.
There's a lot of things I did that I've got buried so deep in my mind, I'm not sure I can really bring them forward. And I don't want to.
Probably best that way. So what were the good times like in the war?
Well, the good times was, I think shore duty was great.
Mm-hmm.
We got fed well, medical care. We had a lot of close relationships with good buddies, and it's good. Even overseas isn't bad, except when you're in battle, hey, it's hell.
Yeah. So what kind of places did you get to see during the war?
Well, we spent a few days in Hawaii. Most ships pull into Hawaii. And we went to New Zealand and spent a few days. And then we went to Australia and spent a few days.
You like that? So what was your favorite place?
Well, I think all of them would be great places hadn't it been for war conditions.
Yeah.
Hawaii is a great place to go, but we went when it was all barbed wire.
Did you go into Pearl Harbor?
Yep.
So and you went, it was probably a year or so after Pearl Harbor was bombed. What was it like there?
Well, it's a beautiful place to be. And I think I'd like to go there sometime in peacetime.
Just kind of a side note on this. I was just wondering, when you heard that Pearl Harbor was bombed, what was your reaction?
Well, we were at church as a family on December 7th, 1941. And we came home from church. And the first thing my dad always did was to turn the radio on, and Roosevelt was on the radio saying that we were at war with the Japanese. They had just bombed Pearl Harbor. And we were at war, and we didn't, well, I guess I was young enough so I really didn't know what war was or what to expect. And Roosevelt declared war against the Japanese. Later on, the Germans declared war against us, so we had two major fronts, Japanese, Germany. Not only did we have war with Germany, but we went to Africa, we went to Italy, we were all over, and it was a big world war.
Yeah. When you went out, you had no idea where you'd be.
They don't tell you.
Yeah.
You wait until you're out to sea, then they can tell you.
Yeah. Did you write home frequently?
Yes, I did.
Were you able to tell anybody? You couldn't tell them where you were, just somewhere in the Pacific. So who did you keep in touch with while you were out to sea?
Well, I kept in touch with my Grandma Wood, and I kept with my mother, and my sister. She was working with the FBI. That's Grace. She was working with the FBI in Washington and stayed there for a number of years. In fact, she retired from the FBI. And Lois, my younger sister, she was in I think, California, and she came to, I did my convalescing in Salt Lake City. Lois came and visited me there. My brother was with the he wasn't in the Army or the Navy or Coast Guard. He was with the what do you call it? He was with the
Merchant Marine?
yeah, Merchant Marine. He went to
Okay.
Kings Point and got a lieutenant's commission and was in the Merchant Marine.
So you kept in touch with your whole
And
family?
he was in the Atlantic all the time.
Okay. So you were saying you did keep in pretty close contact with your family members, though? Now my mom told me a story about how your grandma gave you a letter before you went to the war.
Well, no, while I was in the service, in fact, I was in the service, and my grandmother wrote me a letter telling me about gambling, that gambling was a great sin. And I still have a copy of that letter somewhere upstairs, and told me don't gamble. And I never did gamble in the service.
Had a pretty big impact on you, huh?
It had a big impact.
You had a lot of respect for your grandmother?
Yes. I think of all the people, my grandmother was an outstanding individual. Not only was she a great cook, but she read the Bible, always read the Bible daily. She played the organ. She had an old pump organ, and as kids, took two of us to play it. One to hit the keys,
One to pump the
one to
pedals.
hold on and pump. And it was very interesting. She was a great person.
That's neat. Now, so what kind of medals and awards did you receive?
Oh, I don't like to talk about that. I got quite a few ribbons, and I can't find them. I don't even know where they are. They're here somewhere. But either the mice got them, because a few years ago when we had the field up here, we used to get a lot of field mice in the house. And they chewed up a lot of improvement ears and a lot of ensigns. But I never wore them.
You ever look at them?
Never.
One question I've got for you. The gentleman I was talking to was telling me about the good behavior medal. How everybody who just kind of kept their nose clean got the good behavior medal. Did you get that one?
Yes, I did, and I got one at the end of the war for serving. And I never even wore that. That's upstairs, I think. Now, what was that called? Like after war, we got the 5220.
What's that?
You got $20 for 52 weeks. Big pay.
You went to college after the war
Went
for
to
a little bit.
school.
Where did you go?
Well, I did two. I finished high school and then I went to 2 years, a little bit more than 2 years to college. But my family was quite sick. I was the only one that was home. Robert was still at sea. And Grace was in Washington. Lois was in I think she was in Kansas for a while and then came home. But I was the only one home, so I could take care of my parents.
So where did you go to school at?
NDAC,
NDAC.
North Dakota Agriculture College.
Okay. You're studying forestry. You mentioned that while the other boys were buying up cars, you're buying up antique guns.
I sure did.
What kind of guns did you get?
I had a Sharps carbine, which was a military weapon.
It's the only one made by the Confederate Army, is that correct?
This one was. And the only way you can tell it by the serial number.
One of how many?
Well, we made lots of them in the North. The Confederate Army only, I think it was about 1,000 or just a little over 1,000. But they were real collector's items.
I'm sure.
And I had an original Kentucky rifle, which was a flintlock, and I had a Mauser, and I had the one I really wanted was a Luger. I wanted a German Luger, but I could never get a hold of one.
Now most of those guns are in the Bonanzaville Museum, is that right? On display for everybody.
Yep.
Yeah, tough to get a hold of now. That's interesting. So what about your convalescence period? You were stationed. You were up in Ogden, is that right?
No, I wasn't. Yes, I was. I was in
Clearfield.
Ogden, not. Yeah, Clearfield.
Okay.
But the ones for that was in Brigham City was the one for the amputees.
Okay. Now, can you tell me a little bit more about that? You know what happened to you, and you know, you talked about how they just about removed your one hand.
The fingers were busted and the thumb was busted. The thumb was cracked from here down to here, and they wanted to do some amputees. And I told them, try one more time. I pleaded with them to try one more time, and they did, and they saved my hand. And they worked well.
They just about weren't able to save it. They didn't think they were going to be able to.
Well, they gave up at one time. But they can do things so much better now than they did then.
So what was that like? What were things like up there at the base in Clearfield?
Well, Clearfield was it was the largest military inland base for the Navy.
Mm-hmm.
And it was a good base.
So what were things like? The atmosphere,
Well, I had a good buddy who was a good writer, and I used to do a lot of drawing. And one time he wrote a poem about the captains coming on base with his dogs into the administrative building. He drew the picture, I drew the picture, and he wrote the poem.
You still have it?
And no, I do not. Well, I might downstairs someplace, because that was in the base paper, and we almost got into deep trouble. The captain did not appreciate it.
So what was it about?
Well, it was about the captain's dogs coming in and messing on the floor as they came into the administrative building.
What'd the picture look like?
Well, it was pretty illustrated. Showing the dogs, showing the captain. But being on the base was a good base to be in. We were treated well. The Navy treated us well. We got fed well. And when we had problems, we could always go to the base hospital and get taken care of.
So
One of the bad things was I drank a lot, and I smoked a lot, and I did what you do in the Navy, do all the bad things.
Part of being a military boy, right?
Yep.
Mentioned you were reading an article one time about, what was it, 25th Street in Ogden?
25th Street was the wildest, second wildest street in the United States.
You know it pretty well.
I did indeed. From Washington Boulevard down to the train depot.
Did you get in many fights there?
Yes,
Held your own though, didn't you?
Hmm?
You could hold your own pretty well though.
I did very well. We took on the Marines one time, and got into trouble.
So that's why I was asking about the good behavior medal. I was wondering if you got enough trouble that they'd take your medal away from you.
No,
No, not that bad. Just a little fighting.
they got to catch us first.
Everybody'd run, huh?
Yeah, we got back to the base, and then the police were there, and they wanted us, and the Navy wouldn't let us go.
You never did get caught? That's great.
There was always fights, always arguments.
Anything important or just anything that you could think to fight about?
Well, I was a pretty good fighter, and believe it or not, I never got that broken.
Quite the accomplishment, huh? Now, you told me a story about the bone in your thumb that healed incorrectly.
Yeah.
There's a doctor one of the military doctors that
He had it
fixed
on a little kind of a pedestal, and then he'd go like this, and he says, you know what we're going to have to do? We're going to have to break it. It's not healing properly. All of a sudden he took a bang and broke it.
He said he had a hammer just behind his back.
He sure did. And had he not been a commander, I would have hit him.
Can't even imagine.
But it healed.
It worked. So how many of the bones in your hand were broken?
Quite a few of them.
You still have to work it regularly to keep the
I
motion.
do, and I do exercise a lot.
It was your left hand?
Both hands.
Both hands. So how long did it take for him to heal?
Quite a while.
What'd you do in that time? Did you spend most of your time in the hospital, or did you get up and go walk around? And
Oh, I could get up and move around.
so
I could go on shore leave, and probably the best way to get rid of the pain is to drink. And I did that. I wasn't always a good boy.
You know, I think everybody's got to go through the hard times, though. So what other kind of things did you do while you were, how long were you in Clearfield?
Oh, I was in Clearfield quite a while.
About how long?
Probably just a little over a year.
So you got to know Ogden Valley pretty well.
Yes, I knew Ogden real well because it wasn't far away, but Salt Lake was further. And we used to take the Bamberger bus, or not a bus, but train, to Salt Lake.
So what did you think of Salt Lake at the time?
Well, I liked Salt Lake a great deal. We went to the temple grounds quite frequently.
Did they impress you, or what did you think of them at the time?
Well, a couple of things. When I worked on the Clearfield, I met a lot of good LDS people. I was invited to a number of homes, and they treated us very well, even though we were not LDS.
So for the most part, did you enjoy your stay?
Oh yes, I did indeed.
Just trying to remember all the stories that you've told me.
And the Navy at the base took us on some bus trips. Like one time I can remember they took us up to Alpine Loop. And I didn't remember it until we came home back, moved here. Then we did the same thing. I said, I've been here.
That's neat. So then after about a year here, then you got to go home to North Dakota. What were things like when you got home?
Well, first I had to find a job, and like I said, when I first got home, I was not the most pleasant person in the world. I had a lot of hate in me. I think the thing I saw, these people stayed here, made good money, while we were out getting poor pay and getting shot at. And it took a long time to simmer down. Like I said, if I could look and kill people, I would have done it. And I would have probably done a whole lot of damage. But I stayed clean.
Is that what made you the most upset, was coming home and watching the people who stayed?
And some of them even wanted the war to continue so they could make big money.
They had no idea what it was like over there.
Not the foggiest.
Did you ever try to tell anybody what it was like?
No. I have never really told anybody of my past. I just buried it so deep in my mind that I did not want to tell anybody. See, like I never told the family. Ever.
So what made you decide to start sharing some more of your stories?
Sometimes the questions, I answered a few of them, but not in deep detail.
Mm-hmm.
I just soon keep it buried.
Well, you seem to tell more of your stories over these past few years. Is there something that you either read or thought about that just made you decide to tell some more of your stories?
Well, I'll probably never will really get into deep details.
Mm-hmm.
I never will. Just leave it buried.
Yeah. So before we started recording, we were talking a little bit about when you went ashore, and you had to collect dog tags. Would you mind telling that story?
Well, I don't know.
That's fair. Yeah, I understand. So what would you say the war experience did for you? In some ways, did it help you? In some ways,
Well, yes, it did. I've always been kind of a shy person, and I don't like to. There's some things I just don't want to tell.
mm-hmm. So what kind of impact did it have on your life, though?
Well, I think basically they had a good. You know, I got home, I went to school, got a good job, and I made fairly decent money. And I think that happened to a lot of us when we came home from the service. Hey, we just got out of the service, got home, get married, have a family, and get on with your life.
It make you look at life a lot more seriously.
Mm-hmm.
I think. So you know, I look at everybody today, and you know, not having. You know, where most people haven't really had an experience where they've needed to think seriously about life. This really forced you to consider what life was about.
Yeah, and I think one of the better things that happened was it had the missionaries calling us. Then we moved out here, and I think one of the better things that happened was to move out here and got my life straightened out.
You think it changed your perspective on people as a whole, just on
Yes.
the world? How did that change you?
Well, I guess that's part of growing up and facing reality, and to know that there are a lot of good people out there. But there's a lot of bad people out there.
Mm-hmm.
And I think one of the things as I got older was I had, we originally had 3 girls, and we lost one. But if anybody hurt one hair in their head, I would become very violent. I'm sure. I'm not a violent person, but I think I would be very, very violent if anybody hurt a hair in their head. Or the grandkids.
Yeah, you're very protective of your family. So, you know, after, like, as you went through the war, did you ever get to know any of the people, like, over in Japan or in the Asian countries?
Oh yes, I have several Oriental friends that I've known over the years, like the Matsumoris.
Mm-hmm.
Great Chinese people. Good religious people.
Did you have any times where it was just really difficult to do your job because of the way you looked at people, or were your, I don't know, what were your opinions of the people you were fighting against?
Well, I guess I did build up a real hate for the Japanese people, and that's part of the job.
Mm-hmm.
I guess we're looking at the same thing today as we look at the Middle East. They're good people over there. And there's some bad people over there. There are people that did the 9/11 thing, which I have a hard time relating to. How can they possibly do that to innocent people? And I'm not sure I have any answers to that. But I don't mean that I hate those people.
Mm-hmm.
I think hate is the worst thing that you can conceive, because hate will destroy you. I know a few years ago out at the prison, I had a friend and we taught love is letting go of fear. one of the greatest classes that we could teach out there.
Hmm.
And it did a lot. And it's too bad that we can't relate to that type of thing in our daily lives. We can build up a lot of hate. We hear about this, that, and the other. But why can't we change that fear to love? Fear will destroy you. I know as the kids were growing up, don't hate this, don't hate that. Change it to some other word you can dislike, but don't hate. I hate this, I hate that. And our whole society is based basically on that premises. We all hate. But why? Why not use another word?
So
when as your children grow up, how are you going to handle hate? As part of the society. But you don't have to use hate. You don't have to hate. Isn't there something better to use?
That's a good point. So if there were one thing that you could change in the world, think that'd be it?
I think that would be a real good start.
So
Have you watch TV and there's so much hate on the TV?
So when you look at the world today, seeing how history has a way of repeating itself, how do you see things?
Well, we haven't changed anything. We look at history, and how many wars have there been over the history of the world? Can't we change? The only thing we've changed is the method at which we're doing things. Instead of use bow and arrows and spears and swords, we use automatic weapons. And automatic weapons have become so violent, we can kill hundreds of people at a flick of a wrist or thumb.
Where do you see the world going, though?
Well, we'll have, with the weapons that we got today, we could destroy basically the world in just a few seconds. We got weapons we didn't have in World War II.
Think it's a good thing we didn't have those?
Well, I think, yes. If the Japanese had developed it, and they were very, very close of getting it, so would the Germans.
What do you?
Had they got them, would they have used them? Certainly, without question. Then where would we be today? And how many nations have it already at their disposal? Japanese have it, Chinese have it, Pakistan has it, India has it, Russia has it. And are they really destroying their weapons?
I don't know.
If they wanted to drop one on us, they could do that very easily. I think it's always in the back of minds of people.
It's an easy way out. Solve all your problems in a few seconds.
See, and I don't worry much about the nuclear weapons as I do the chemical. I worry more about, like for example, if they were to really develop the chicken pox and they were to drop it on the cities, any number of them, whatever it takes to do it, how many people could you destroy? And you're destroying people, not property. Then if you want to come in and take the wealth, you got the wealth.
Yeah. Yeah, they're scary times. I don't know. I guess we gotta do everything we can to change it.
I think in the last couple of days, as I watch the news, they're trying to shoot down planes with guided missiles. And they shoot down planes, how soon will they shoot down an American plane?
Yeah.
We're fighting a different type of war than we did in World War II. We're destroying things rather than to fight a war.
So, when they dropped the atomic bomb on Hiroshima and Nagasaki, what was your reaction to that?
Well, I don't know if I had one at the time, and if I had one, I don't know if I can recall it, but I thought, if that thing gets out of control, what do we do? One bomb killed that many thousands of people, then you can't. But I don't think we really understood the devastation of the bomb. Can we go in and start building a nation after we dropped the bomb? Did we realize that it was going to do that much damage?
Where were you when that happened? Were you back in Clearfield?
Yeah, I was.
How long before the end of the war were you sent back? Like when was it that you got sent back? Do you remember the date?
No. After the war, then Korea started, and I got a letter saying, don't bring your family, don't bring your car, don't bring your clothes, you've got a ship assigned to you.
That was for Korea? So they almost sent you after the Korea War as well?
Sure did. I came within a whisker.
Because you were still a reserve then?
Mm-hmm. And I was married and had a family.
That would have been scary. So when was it approximately? Like when did your ship get hit and you got sent back to Clearfield?
That would be early 45, I guess.
So not too long before the bomb dropped and the war ended.
Because that was Okinawa, and the bomb was dropped just shortly afterwards.
So it was in the Battle of Okinawa that your ship got hit. Is there anything that you could say about that battle?
Well, it was just another big battle. And we were going to go in there and we were going to win. And we were going to take out a lot of lives. But they were ready to give up because they were starving to death. Starvation had already started taking its toll in Japan at the time. We may not have known exactly how devastating it was, but they had to give up because they were starving. They needed food.
So how fierce was the fighting?
Well, if we had landed troops, it would have been just another big Okinawa, another Iwo Jima.
So no troops went ashore then. It was all fought from the sea. How many of the kamikaze planes were flying around right then?
Oh, I don't know how many totally. I don't remember. But there were a lot of those who ditched their own ship because they didn't want to.
They didn't want to die. So for three of them to run right into your ship, there were probably quite a few more that you were able to shoot down before then.
Well, we did knock down some, but not all of them.
Yeah. What's that? Was Hank on Okinawa?
Yes.
He was taking pictures?
Well, he was a barber
Hmm.
on Okinawa.
But he was also taking pictures.
Well, he sure did.
Hmm. So was he on the island when all the battle was going on?
Hmm.
Was there any danger? Was there an American? How was a barber on the shores of Okinawa? Was there a base there, or was there?
Well, there wasn't an American base at the time, but there was a Japanese island just offshore of Japan. Okinawa, then Japan.
Right. So what was he doing ashore?
He was just a barber.
Like, were there a lot of people ashore? Was there? I mean, was there like a temporary Navy base set up there for him to be? Yeah.
No.
So how was he ashore there?
He wasn't on Okinawa.
He wasn't on
No,
Okinawa.
he
He was on a ship during the Battle of Okinawa. Okay. Okay. So did you ever think you weren't going to make it?
Well, I think that's always in the back of your mind.
Did you ever feel like you were protected in any way?
I don't know how to answer that. I think I was extremely lucky to be where I'm at. Had I known then what I know now, see, I wasn't a member of the church at that time.
Right.
I was just a bad boy doing bad things. And I was good at what I did. And yet I knew a number of men who did the same thing but were really good examples.
Mm-hmm.
I met a lot of good LDS people. I even met a few, what we used to call then, Jack Mormons.
Mm-hmm.
They were good Mormons, but they were not good Mormons.
Mm-hmm.
They wouldn't give up their religion, but they would not do the things that they're supposed to be doing.
Right.
So, and they were good examples. In fact, when I came to Salt Lake, here was a place like I've never been. All the places I've never been in a place like Salt Lake. These people are different than any that I have ever met. Of all the places I've been, I've never met a group of people like this.
And so you stayed. Well, you came back.
Yeah.
But did you ever have any times where you looked at something that happened and you said, that one should have taken me. I should have been gone from that one.
I don't know if that is exact thought entered my mind, but I have thought of that. Why was I spared?
Yeah, I'm sure you can't go through something like that and not ask that question. Did you ever have any times where, I don't know, did you ever feel close to God while you were out there?
Yes,
Uh,
I did.
Can you tell me about any of those?
Oh, let's see. Well, I guess I have always known that there was a God because I was brought up in a real, real good Christian home. Not LDS, however.
Mm-hmm.
My folks were not LDS. But they lived close to God, and they were very religious people. They went to church every Sunday. They rarely ever missed. My dad was busy in the men's club. My mother was very active in the Circle, which is like the Relief Society. Mm-hmm. It was just a big gossip group.
So what are you saying about the Relief Society?
No, I'm not saying that about the Relief Society, but I'm just saying that there were women in the Circle that just loved to gossip.
Mm-hmm.
That's all they went for, is to hear the rumors.
Mm-hmm.
I think of Mrs. Nichols. You remember her? But I always knew that there was a God. That there was, and I was probably more convinced as I climbed the mountains out here and went to the tops and looked around me and saw the greatness that there is. And I came close several times of being probably taken, but why? I don't know.
So what kind of things happened out there that actually made you feel closer to God, though?
I think a lot of it is a lot of the people that I was around. They were all doing the same darn thing.
Mm-hmm.
We were all doing the same thing. Are we going to make it? Are we not? We did things that we really shouldn't be doing. I was brought up, thou shalt not kill. All of a sudden, you're thrown into a situation where you either do it or you don't. And you got to learn to survive. And somehow we did it. And we came home, got our discharge, went home, went to school, got married, had a family, and it just seems to work out. But I don't want to think about the past.
Sure.
And we just raised our family. We were good people.
So what about some of the people that really influenced you for good while you were out there? Do you remember anybody in particular that?
Oh, I can think any number of people, maybe not by name, but I was influenced by some good people. I had some good companions. And we became very close. I remember Lon Tizabon, for example. We did the same thing. We were young, we grew up, we went home, raised a family. I corresponded with him quite a number of years after the war. And I think the other thing, as I became familiar with civilian life, and as we joined the church, I was influenced by a number of good LDS people, like Paul Adams and Dale King and Adams, and any number of people that were a good influence, a real good influence. Even as I served in various positions, I was always under the influence of a lot of outstanding people.
So were there any, obviously while you were out there, there were some people close to you that didn't make it. How did that affect you?
Well, I don't know how to answer that one either. I know they affected me, but I'm not sure that I want to get into that because they influenced me. And I guess as we grow older, we always face death around us. A sister dies, or death of grandparents die, parents die, and my mother lived to be 101 years old. And I think basically she could have lived, as I understand it, she could well have lived to be 105 or more, because mentally she was really quite well. She had good eyes, good hearing, good mind, but the body was not there. Had she not had the big tumor, she could well have lived to be 105. But I think basically, as I look at people and I see people who die of not a heart attack, but a broken heart. When you give up, you're going to be gone shortly. And I think my mother was ready to give up.
It was time.
There was time.
101, that's a long time to live.
In this day and age.
Mm-hmm. But, of the people that were close to you, I just can't help think that, there were some where you feel like you need to live your life in such a way that you'd either make them proud or you'd honor them for their sacrifice. Or something like that really impacted the way you lived. You decided to live.
I think a lot of the people that I know, and you probably know, but in their service, as they give a lot of themselves in helping people. And that's part of what makes the church so great, is service. You're willing to help. I think last week, I got a call from an individual that I worked with, and she was an inmate out at the Utah State Prison. And I haven't seen her for a long time. Probably about 7 years or more. And she called and needed some help. Okay, how can I help you? I'm out of the loop. I haven't done this for quite some time.
Mm-hmm.
What can I do for you? She says, you're the only person I know that can help. She said she's on her way to Washington. Where can I get help? I said, well, it's Saturday night and it's late. The church is closed. No, it's Friday night. I said, give me till tomorrow. Let me see what I can do to get you some help. So I called the bishop, and I got a hold of him in Tennessee. And he said, why don't you call Phil Jorgensen? He can help you. So I did, and he gave me help. So I gave her a list of all the bishops in Yakima, Washington.
I suppose we should. Let's keep talking now.
Now you dedicated a lot of your life to serving people. Were there some things that, anything in particular that made you just really decide that you wanted to give your life to helping people out?
Well, that goes a long ways back. I think one day I got a call to the bishop. He says, come in and see me. So I went in to see him. He said, how would you like to go to prison? I said, baloney. I don't know anybody there, and I don't care to know anybody there. So the bottom line was, go out there tomorrow morning. Go out there tomorrow morning and see what it's like. So I went out there, and I got kind of mixed up. I got underneath the tower, and I looked up, and the guy with the great big cannon was pointing down at me, and I really didn't like the looks of it. I said, how do I get to the administrative building? He said, well, just turn around, go back to that building there, and there you are. So I went in there, then I had to find out how to get into the meeting. He says, go upstairs into the conference room. So I did, and I met with a bunch of the brethren. One was Bishop Bay and Dale Springer and a couple other people that I knew. And he said, well, why don't you come on board? Then I had to learn how to get acquainted with the inside. But finally I got to a point where I probably could help. And I got involved and I stayed 22 years.
A lot of good experiences there.
A lot of great experiences. I met a lot of nasty guys. I met some guys that were quite evil. I met some guys that could use a lot of help. All I had to show them is how to get their lives turned around. And we helped a lot. Some of them got out and became bishops. Some of them came out and became counselors in the stake presidency. A lot of them went on missions. So as I was asked, do you think you're doing any good out here? I said, oh yes, I am. And I think like Henry, and I think of Dale, and I think of Don, and any number of them who really got their lives turned around. They're all out doing very well. One probably that I missed somehow was Gypsy. He had no family. And he has nobody outside of prison. And I don't know if he's still in prison or not. But what do we do for him if he gets outside? He's probably really better off inside than he is outside, because he has no family. He had a dad that would have been a good person for him to be under the influence, but Gypsy's dad died of cancer. He smoked too much. But he's probably the only one I can say better off inside than outside.
But you can't look at all the failures. You gotta look at the ones that, you can't change a person's life for them. I know on my mission that was a hard thing to learn. You could see somebody had all the potential in the world, but you couldn't change their life for them. You just have to try. You just have to try and help wherever you can. Grandpa, we've got about 10 minutes left on this tape before it finishes. You think of any other stories or experiences, anything else you'd like to tell about, whether it's the war or afterwards, or anything that just sticks out in your mind?
No, not really. I think just basically, if a person can devote themselves and become converted to the gospel, are doing the right thing. And we can change people, even bad people can be changed to become a good person. But we can't make that change. Bottom line is up to you. And it's what I consider my 10 two-letter words. If it is to be, it is up to me. You're the bottom line. You make the change. I can help, but I can't do it. You've got to make up your mind. Do you want to change? Do you want to quit smoking? Do you want to quit drinking? Do you want to kick the drugs habit? Do you want to make and become a better person? Then you can do it. You're the one that can do it. You make the change. We can help, but we can't do it for you.
I guess along those lines, if you can change yourself, you change the world, right?
Do you want to make the change?
Any other parting words?
No, I think I'm about worded out.
Okay, thanks, Grandpa. Turn this over here, see if Grandma has anything she'd like to add. How you doing, Grandma?
Okay.
So anything you'd like to, any words of wisdom, anything from your life that you'd like to add to this?
This thing happened to me was leaving Harold and getting married and having a big family. And they all been good children. And we have wonderful grandchildren and great-grandchildren.
You guys have done a good job. You've got great kids and grandkids.
I don't feel those for me.
So, just curiosity, Grandma, what were you doing during the war?
Well, when I heard the news, I go to support the job. And that Sunday that happened, I was with the people that I was working for, and we heard it on the radio. And it was just stunned silence. I remember it was just such a, because they said we're at war. And we never went to war. It was war. I was 20 years old, I just turned 20. And then I worked for them for about 6 months. And then I went to Minneapolis, and I worked for a couple Jewish families and one Protestant family.
What were you doing?
Housework,
Housework.
yeah. And then I belonged to a club called the Priscilla Club. That's a WWII, and I was president of it. The last couple of years I was there, and we used to do things together. And we went to Duluth, Minnesota, and we went to I got to go to St. Louis, Missouri on the train for a conference for housekeeping. They called us maids at that time. And
Had you been able to travel much before that?
not a lot. But then I went to Minneapolis, went into Fargo from Minneapolis. I've been working for AT&T for about 8 months.
What did you do for AT&T?
I was on long distance.
Dispatch or?
Yeah.
Okay. Or not dispatch, but on the switchboard?
Yeah, on
okay.
the switchboard. And then they had a strike. And so I called my mother to talk to her to see what I should do. Because his family in Fargo wanted me to come there and take care of their children. We had a girl 8 and a boy 4. And so my mother said, well, if it's making you nervous and then there's a strike coming up, why maybe you should go, because they were going to California and they want somebody to go with them. And so I decided to go to Fargo. And I'm so glad I did, because then we didn't go that year because the lady of the house had a nervous breakdown and she was in the hospital for about 5 months. So I was left with the children and I didn't even hardly know them. But then the next January we went to San Diego and we stayed in Los Angeles.
So coming from North Dakota, what'd you think of that?
Oh, it was like another land. It was so beautiful. I mean, the flowers were blooming. It was January, and we went through snowstorms hitting there, but there wasn't snow there. But we stayed in a big home there, and for 3 months, from January till April. And then we came back. In the meantime, I had met Harold at a church, Methodist church, Houston, and we didn't really know each other that well. And when we got
That's
back,
when was it? How long was it before you learned how old he was?
I was after the marriage.
How old did he tell you he was?
He said he was 25.
25, and how old was he?
23.
So you didn't know you were marrying a younger man.
No.
What about the marriage license?
I don't.
Because you need to put your date of birth down for that, right?
Yeah. Yeah, we do. So he has his wrong license, I'm sure. I don't know what date he put down. I know he said he was 25. And one of our friends who'd been in the service, Wally, was in the Army. And he's the one that told me he did.
Oh, that's funny. Well, because that's what he had on his military records as well, wasn't it? Yeah.
Oh, he had to have his right age there, you know. But, and
So what'd
She knows
you?
how to tell family secrets.
What's that?
She knows how to tell family secrets.
Oh, he didn't like it.
Hey, we gotta get
Everything is broadcasted. And that's why I don't tell her
Oh,
anything.
everything. I haven't told hardly anybody that's a kid.
We gotta get the stories now, right? So what'd you think when you met Grandpa?
What do you think about you? Well, we just kind of grew together. We just started playing games and things together with another girl, Dorothy and Wally. We went to, she worked in a Jewish family, and I took up beauty culture for 6 months. And then I went to Devil's Lake. And by that time, Dad came up to see me. And Devil's Lake was just close to 200 miles away. And he asked me to marry him.
Were you expecting it, or were you expecting the proposal, or did it come as a surprise to you?
Yes, probably. By that time, I probably wasn't too sweet.
Yeah.
He asked me, I was folks and I was a carpenter. Came down to the contest in March. And we went to get the room together. And I went back up there until August. And we were married in September.
Okay. All right. Well, the tape's about up here, so I better turn it off. But thanks, Grandma.